liberty lovers, and welcome to the Liberty Mike podcast, broadcasting from an undisclosed location in the heart of Dixie. I am Michael, and I am here with Liberty Larry.
How's it going?
Doing all right. How are you?
Pretty good.
Yeah? Good. I had people over working on my house today.
Ooh, that's never fun.
Well, I wish they would finish. That's kind of the main thing. Like, I've got this piece of drywall that's been cut out over one of my windows because I got a leak.
Yeah.
And I think they discovered that the source of the leak is my chimney. And since I never use my fireplace, they said, we can't just like take the chimney off and replace the fireplace with an electric one and so on.
Yeah.
I said, okay. Let's do that. I have no need for the chimney. Like, chimney's just a liability as long as it's there, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have this blank spot on the wall above my window. It's been there for like 2 months because they hadn't, my contractor hadn't been able to find time to bring his roof guy over.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Contractors are busy people. I mean,
Yeah.
I've known and dealt with enough of them that, everybody gets upset with contractors because they're like, oh, well, they're never here when I need them, or I keep calling and can't get a hold of them. Dude, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, it's a way of life.
yeah.
You know?
Well, and he's a friend. I've known him for almost 20 years. And I know that he works like 16 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, those guys do. People get frustrated with them when they can't get a hold of them or when they feel like they're dragging their feet. But the truth is they're just busy folks.
Yeah.
All of them I've ever known, at least the good ones. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and there's no way I can complain because like I'm getting a deal. Like, there's no way I would pay as little for any other contractor. Like, if he wasn't a friend, then I couldn't afford him probably.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, it's definitely, that's a profession where those guys are running and gunning all the time.
Yeah.
So
You trade off a little bit of timeliness for
yeah.
a discount of sorts.
And somebody that you know is going to do the job right.
Exactly. Trust is, the other part of that.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that I just wanted to go over briefly, and then I thought that we would talk about money.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of tired of talking about foreign policy because it's just depressing.
It's very depressing.
So maybe we talk about money. That's also depressing, but in a different way.
All right.
And at least there's some hope, maybe, sort of, kind of there.
You see a light at the end of the tunnel?
Not really.
Never.
Well, I think there's always a light at the end of the tunnel because government currency will eventually collapse.
Yeah. And that's the light.
Yeah, exactly. So prepare yourself.
It's the light if you have something else. If all you're holding is dollars, it's definitely not the light.
Well, you have assets.
You hope.
Well,
I mean, you
have a car, you maybe have a house, you've got furniture, a computer, a phone.
Yeah.
Like, you've got things that have value.
Yeah. That's true.
So
you may need those to barter with in the future.
yeah. No, there's always going to be, well, that's the point. We'll get to that.
I'm pulling you off track.
So first I wanted to say just a little something about the Supreme Court decision that said that federal district courts can't enjoin nationwide, essentially. Like, they can't. And I think that this is a good decision. This is the way it's supposed to function. They were... Otherwise, the district level federal courts are usurping power from the executive and the legislature.
Well, and this is something that's been complained about by both parties for decades.
Yeah.
It's going way back. Like, this has always been an issue that these like district judges can impact national decisions. Mm-hmm. And that's just not, it just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and I saw a statistic, and I should have written it down, but I wasn't in a place where I could. But it was some huge percentage of these nationwide injunctions have come out of just a couple of districts.
In California.
Is it just California? I assume that it would be California and the D.C. area.
I don't know that it's just California, but
I figured Virginia and California.
I felt like
that.
I saw something where it was like a ton of them were California. It may not be all, but a ton.
Okay. Well, that doesn't surprise me. The point being that almost all of these nationwide injunctions, or almost all, much higher than half of these nationwide injunctions have come out of just a couple of districts.
Yeah.
And obviously, 2 districts doesn't represent the nation.
Well, no, and
very well.
The whole idea here is that's where the power of the Supreme Court comes in.
Right.
Like if a president oversteps, it's not these district judges that get to step in and rein him in. It's the Supreme Court.
Right. Well, what the Supreme Court said is that these district judges are overstepping their authority, and what they are permitted to do is to issue opinions on the case in front of them.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some caveats and so forth, but essentially they're deciding for the people that brought the case in front of them. And not for everybody.
Not for the nation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those judgments are, judgments. That's the right word.
Yeah.
Would apply to those districts and not nationwide.
Yeah. And then if there's a problem with that, then it can find its way through the system to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court, of course, does issue opinions on conflicts between states.
Yeah.
So if one district says that this is permissible and one district says that it doesn't, that it's not, and there's a challenge between them, if something arises between these 2 states because of these judgments, it can be brought to the Supreme Court, etc. So
yeah.
I would say that it would eventually get solved, but
yeah. I mean, we're talking about
the Supreme Court.
I mean, the Supreme Court picks the cases they want to take, so they can very easily ignore stuff they don't want to deal with. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's that's got to be baked in there.
Yeah. So anyway, I am happy about this decision. Hopefully, it will rein in the district courts to some degree. Yeah. I did this was covered in several places, and I thought it was entertaining. But Amy Coney Barrett wrote the majority opinion, and really didn't address the minority opinion, which was written by Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, I didn't read it myself, honestly, but as I understand it, Ketanji Brown Jackson's opinion was like a whole bunch of just like lofty philosophical stuff.
Yeah.
Not really grounded in the law, and and usually the majority opinions like make their argument against the minority opinion that's being issued.
Yeah.
But Amy Coney Barrett only like mentioned it in passing to say that that Ketanji Brown Jackson is concerned about an imperial executive and is creating an imperial judiciary.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, that's not off target.
Yeah, but that's all she said about it, which I think is just kind of funny.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's all I really wanted to say about that. There's another opinion that I think is important, but I haven't really gotten a chance to look into it, which is this opinion on the Texas pornography law. It's what it does is it requires pornographic sites to do age verification.
Okay.
And it's just, it seems to me, and I'm not sure, like I said, I haven't gotten to look into it really, but it seems to me that this is another blow against internet anonymity.
Yeah.
And like, you've heard me on this podcast before. Like, I have a lot of complaints about internet anonymity.
Yeah.
But I think it should remain.
Right. Yeah.
Like it does create a whole lot of problems, mostly in how people treat other people online. But But I think that ability to remain private is important in all cases. And just because, like, I understand the moral concerns about pornography being available to children and so forth, but this requirement that they verify who the users are is a foot in the door.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just going to expand from there.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you got to identify yourself on every website you go to, you know, and then somewhere they're keeping a log of this. I mean, I guess they're doing that anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Probably.
that ship's done sailed, I guess. But so
yeah, but at least make them work at it a little bit, like tracking IP addresses through, why can't I think of the term? The
VPN.
VPNs,
Yeah.
tracking IP addresses through VPNs, and that's the other thing about like this particularly, because it's restricted to the state, and this state I think has one of these laws also.
A lot of states
Alabama
do. I think Florida does too. I don't know. I saw a list somewhere recently of all the states that had enacted that.
Yeah, I imagine it's pretty common across the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
But at any rate, this can be avoided obviously by using a VPN to make it appear that you're accessing from somewhere else. But
yeah.
Still,
and kids will figure that out.
Yeah, they're more likely to figure it out than the
Adults.
Politicians.
Yeah.
Way more tech savvy than most people in both state and federal legislatures. So
yeah, for sure on that one.
Yeah. All right, but we'll come back to that when I know more about it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to dig into that. I had heard about that ruling, but I haven't looked into it very much.
So, like one other this is the only foreign policy thing that I'm addressing here tonight, is that one of the fallouts from the attacks on Iran is that Iran has ejected the IAEA inspectors.
Really?
And the reason for that is that it's become increasingly likely that the source of Western intelligence that was made them able to attack these scientists and so forth, like for the Israeli government to pull off this assassination campaign that they did at the very start of this, and for the knowledge of the sites and where to find things and so on. It's becoming increasingly likely that the IAEA inspectors were the sources of this intelligence.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely heard that's somebody, I don't remember who it was touting though that, yeah, we know we got these sites because we know where the stuff's at because we've seen it because from the inspections. Yeah. So we know what's in these sites and where it's located, and that's how we're so confident that we got it all. Mm-hmm. Like that was the line from somebody. I don't remember who now.
Yeah, so the result of that is that Iran has ejected the IAEA inspectors. So now, through Donald Trump's actions in his first term where he exited the JCPOA and added sanctions back onto Iran, and then in this administration actually dropping bombs on Iranian nuclear energy sites.
Yeah.
The result is that this world is much less safe than it was before. Like, if you're concerned about Iran developing a nuclear weapon, then having an eye on things and additional safeguards seems like it would be an advantage. But you dropped the additional safeguards that were above and beyond what the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which Iran is a party to.
Yeah.
And then you use intelligence that was gained from the inspectors to attack the Iranian nuclear energy sites, and so they eject the inspectors. Now you got nobody watching.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they are still, at this moment, I think, a party to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Yeah. But it would not surprise me if they left it.
Yeah. And it really, all they really have to do is be like, we're leaving it and we'll rejoin when Israel does.
Yeah, that would be a brilliant plan by them.
Yeah. I mean, that's really all they would have to do because, I mean, the one's never going to happen. So,
Yeah, no, that's true.
but it would, like,
It would draw international attention to that particular
issue.
problem, though.
Yeah, absolutely it would.
So, not bad. And then, just as a side note, I was thinking, like, it's amazing to me that governments are able to get their citizenry on board with war,
Yeah.
because war does absolutely nothing for the average citizen. It is only harmful.
Well, that's
Would Iran even be a threat to the United States if it weren't for the United States government?
Oh, well, obviously not. I
mean,
mean,
actually,
they're not a
Iran's-
threat to us anyway.
Well, that's true.
I mean, they're not hitting the homeland. Like, I mean, they're a threat to us in terms of they can attack the empire,
Yeah,
but they're not hitting the U.S. proper.
yeah. But think about what this this conflict has cost the average citizen in the United States. Energy prices are higher. We're inflating away the value of our currency, which we'll spend more time talking about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that we can fund this military activity all over the world.
Yep.
I mean, have you seen, just like, go look up the costs of these 30,000-pound bombs that they dropped, or the cost of the B-2s.
Yeah, dude, the B-2s that's insane. I mean, it's a good plane, but shoot, man.
Yeah, the cost of flight time in these things, the cost of air refueling, like this all came out of the taxpayer one way or another.
Yep.
Either they tax it away from you or they inflate it away from you. It goes one way or the other.
Yeah, you're losing it one way or the other.
And so they're raising the costs. They're not making you safer, and they're reducing the value of your money.
Yeah.
That's what it's done for us.
Exactly. I mean, generally, usually to go to war, you have to have a bunch of propaganda and the whole us versus them thing. I mean, that's how they did it when we went to Iraq. Like I say, I mean, there was a huge propaganda campaign to convince the American people that this was a good idea.
Yeah.
We didn't have any of that with this. Like, this just kind of happened.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, and the only real bad thing from it is that we did spend, well, I mean, there's plenty of bad things, but like one of the big ones is we dumped a bunch of money for nothing. Like, I mean, there was no productivity in the economy, unless you want to, I mean, I guess like Raytheon and like your companies made some money because they get to now resell some more of that stuff to the U.S.
Yeah. Well, those businesses are problems anyway. They're unproductive. An unproductive part of the economy. Any business that is completely reliant, or even mostly reliant, on government spending to exist is not useful to the economy.
Yeah.
It's a drain of resources on the economy that could be used to create something productive and useful to the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of something to blow up halfway around the world.
Yep.
So, and I guess that does just kind of lead us into the discussion of money. And I guess I don't even know where to start really on this. We've talked about it before, like the different categories that people think of as money. And I guess we just start at the basics and define the differences between wealth, currency, and money.
Money. Okay.
Right. So currency is what the government issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's supposed to be backed by something that's actually money.
Yeah.
But it's increasingly not.
Yeah. I mean, ours isn't by anything anymore, right?
I mean, presumably there's a big store of gold, which is a real money.
Yeah.
To back it partially, but
I was going to say it doesn't. There's no way for it to fully back it.
it's definitely not pegged to gold in any way.
Yeah.
But these central banks, they do control a bunch of gold because they know that gold actually has value, unlike the paper that they issue.
Exactly.
But money itself is just a medium of exchange.
Yeah.
It's a commonly accepted medium of exchange. It's valuable because of its saleability across space and time.
Yeah.
Right. So, like if you start with the most basic of economies, and you have two people that are both producing things on their own, and each has something that the other wants, then barter is the simplest thing to do. But like, what if one of the people doesn't want what the other guy has, but still has something that the other guy wants?
You just gotta go steal it then.
Like, well, that's unproductive.
You've left me no other choice.
Well, and that's unproductive in the long term, because then they both destroy wealth in order to gain what they want.
Yeah.
But the idea, if you add a third person in there, maybe they want what you have, and they have something that the other guy wants. So, now you got to do it three ways. So you trade what you have to person C, get what they have that person A wants, and then give person A what person C has, so that you can have what they have that you want.
Gets really complicated really quick.
Yeah. So, what happened was, it didn't take long for people to find a good that had value to a majority of people. And it's been all kinds of things over time. Salt is a really good example. Like, salt has so many uses. Salt is easy to transport. It's divisible. It's, and so, whatever arose in a particular society that had value, that would maintain value, and that could be exchanged, eventually just kind of became money. As people found, all right, well, this is something that I can use with anybody, and then it had a value of its own, right? Okay. And so it became a medium of exchange for people to exchange goods when they didn't have a coincidence of wants,
Right.
And that's where money came from. Well, and money arose before government.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this is an important point, because the modern monetary theory people say that government creates money.
Yeah.
And by the act of only accepting taxes in this money, that's how money is created, as far as the use of money is dependent on it being used to pay taxes.
Yeah.
That's how the modern monetary theorists look at it.
Yeah.
But money arose before government. And then, government did start to collect taxes in money, of course, but it wasn't they have it backwards.
Yeah.
Right. The money came first, then taxes were collected in money, not taxes were collected in money and that made it money.
Yeah. Well, and money still appears in today's, like Bitcoin is money. Mm-hmm. And that's not connected to government in any way.
Right. And gold too. Gold has
gold's the obvious, but yeah.
Gold has been the proven staple over time. And one of the most prosperous time periods in the history of the world was in the 19th century, when essentially the entire world was on a gold standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's one of the things that, the big effects on trade that has resulted from fiat currencies, is that fiat currencies don't have a stable value compared to everything else.
Yeah.
Right? So if you've ever traveled internationally and you had to exchange your American currency for euros or British pounds or Chilean pesos or whatever it happens to be, Swiss francs, that doesn't really matter.
Find out real quick, all these things have different value.
Yeah, and they also charge a premium when you convert, because they don't know that value will be the same the next day.
Yeah, all right.
It doesn't maintain a constant value compared to each other. Yeah. And then, of course, there's the problems that Trump was complaining about so much about. China devalues their currency so that they can export to us. Like that's the idea, is that they devalue their currency, and so the dollar is strong against the yuan. And so it's advantageous for Americans to use their strong dollar to buy Chinese goods.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to export their own goods. All these governments want to export their own goods. And so then it's like a race to the bottom, like who can devalue their currency the most.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've seen that over time anyway. Like all of these currencies have been devalued over time. Whereas they didn't have this problem when everybody was on the gold standard in the 19th century because the money was the same for everybody.
Yeah.
Its value was constant compared to itself.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
And you didn't need government involvement to approve trades. So trades were literally between people.
Yeah. Which that's how it should be anyway. Like,
right.
The government shouldn't get a take.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what happens. That's essentially what a tariff is the government's take.
Yeah. Or it's the people that have do the currency exchanges. They also get a take as well.
Yeah.
Which you've learned if you ever were in a foreign country and used your credit card.
Yeah, I bet. I haven't done that, but that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah. Oh, no, it happens.
Oh, I'm sure it does, but
Like,
what you pay is...
They'll accept your credit card,
I'm
but
sure
then
they will.
there's all these conversions and fees and so on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So all of this would be at least ameliorated if we actually used real money instead of currency to exchange goods.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm an advocate for the gold thing. It's proven.
Gold's great. I mean, I love gold. I think Bitcoin's good too, though.
I'm coming around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm coming around. I've been reading a lot about Bitcoin recently. And
now that you understand it better, you're more of a fan?
Now that I understand it better, I'm intrigued.
Okay. That's fair.
I still, I still don't know. I think that it's probably more stable than it has been up until now.
Yeah.
I think things could still go very wrong, though.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that is the most likely to go wrong with Bitcoin is that there's an alternative like gold.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If the national currencies, the fiat currencies, start collapsing one by one, and of course we're seeing like smaller countries, as their national currency collapses, they're pegging their new currencies to the dollar, for example.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if some organization like the BRICS adopted a hard currency model.
Yeah.
Like if they developed their own currency to use in international trade and it was pegged to gold.
Yeah.
That would create a real competitor to Bitcoin.
Okay. But what's to stop them from just using Bitcoin?
That they can still better control the gold.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the main thing, I think, is that they would still better. Also, it depends on the rate of transactions, because there is a limit to the number of Bitcoin transactions that can take place in a day.
Okay.
So it doesn't serve well like a retail operation.
Okay. I mean, but that's how it was designed. I thought the whole idea was for it to be massively used.
I think it's more, I don't know. I'm not sure what it was created for exactly. I mean, does anybody? Because apparently the person who did it is...
That's true, but I mean, that's what it was sold to me as years ago, is that, oh yeah, this is the future. Soon enough, everybody's going to be using it, and you'll just go to the grocery store and buy them with your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like, I've had that argument made to me.
Yeah. It could build the same kind of industry that is built around fiat currencies that were originally built around real money.
Yeah.
I think, with banks and exchanges and so forth.
Yeah.
to be a middleman of these transactions so that you don't have to file every single transaction. You can file at the end of the day and just settle accounts.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So like when, as an example, using fiat currency, if you're making payments out of your checking account to a number of places in a day, and everybody else is also doing the same thing, and then at the end of the day, the banks all compare their balances and just settle the differonces.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Like
yeah.
they
That
don't
makes
actually
sense.
make every single transaction
Move every
between them.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that kind of industry could build up around Bitcoin as well.
Yeah.
The transactions are recorded every 10 minutes roughly,
Yeah.
the way it's built.
Yeah.
So all new transactions are added to the ledger roughly every 10 minutes. But that means that in order for a payment to be confirmed, you're looking at like
10 minutes.
between 1 and 15 minutes, depending on how close to that
Yeah.
ledger change you make your transaction.
Yeah.
And it's roughly 10 minutes. So it's not
Not
like
exact,
it's not
yeah.
on a schedule in that way. It's built around this proof of work mathematical problem solving,
Yeah.
and the equations are adjusted to make it take approximately 10 minutes. So if like a quantum computer came out and was solving these equations in just a couple of minutes, the complexity of the equations would be increased dramatically to make it take
To meet the new.
roughly 10 minutes. Yeah.
I got you.
So it's supposed to be self-adjusting. I don't know exactly how that works. Like that's way too technical for me.
Yeah.
But at any rate, you can't verify a transaction immediately.
Okay.
And as far as I know, the only real scams that have taken place through Bitcoin are where some exchange or business was accepting payments before the transactions were verified.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they could be attacked for like essentially double use of a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Where a transaction using a particular Bitcoin was sent to them, they accepted the transaction, but then it was canceled and sent to somebody else. But since they didn't wait for the verification, when the verification happened,
It was.
they
not
didn't get
there.
their Bitcoin.
Yeah. it wasn't
There's
there.
nothing there.
Yeah.
So, but that obviously slows things down. So it's not great for like point of sale kind of
Interesting.
retail, as I understand it.
Yeah.
If somebody out there knows better than me, fill me in. Like I'm trying to learn about this stuff. I don't.
Yeah.
I've certainly got a better grasp of it than I have in the past. But
Yeah.
I think it's money. But I think it's money in the sense that it's a store of value.
Well, see, that's how I've always looked at it,
Mm-hmm.
as like an investment, like buying gold or something else. Like
Yeah.
it's an asset that you hold, not one that you use all the time
Yeah, because you expect it to maintain its value.
or gain, or will maintain against inflation.
Yeah, well, maintain is all you really need.
Yeah,
I mean, appreciation is great.
Yeah,
But like, really, you want an asset that maintains value if you're saving.
exactly. Yeah,
And that's the problem that you have with fiat currency, and it creates a bunch of cultural problems
yeah,
because it's always depreciating.
yeah.
The value is always depreciating, so it disincentivizes saving. Bless you.
Thank you.
It disincentivizes saving, and so it converts the entire culture to a higher time preference,
Yeah,
which is some economic stuff that I'm now realizing maybe our listeners don't entirely understand.
we've
Especially
talked about
it's
it before, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't hurt to rehash.
Yeah, because it's counterintuitive the way it works. So a low time preference is actually
Which you won't.
yeah, it means that you're willing to wait a longer period and put off current consumption for future gains,
Yeah,
right? And a high time preference means that you're less likely to put off future consumption. You want to consume immediately.
yeah,
And so, anyway, it creates a culture of high time preference where people aren't interested in saving. There's less, I should say, not no, but there's less capital accumulation, which means there's less development, like economic development.
Yeah.
Because capital stores are necessary to build future goods.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And to improve efficiencies and so forth. So if you incentivize people to spend rather than save, then you're really just kind of slowly bleeding off wealth. And the wealth is just like the value of the things that you have, your value in assets. But it's like the physical value.
Yeah.
Or the value of physical goods, I guess, is a better way of presenting it. Wealth is, man, that one's actually hard to explain in a way. Your currency isn't wealth, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
the wealth is the value of the things that you've accumulated.
The assets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So asset value is more wealth.
Yeah.
Income is not wealth, and is not necessarily, because you can have a high income, but then consume or be constantly spending on stuff that doesn't hold value, like maybe just food and drink or hotel rooms or who knows.
Yeah.
Services. And no matter how much you value those experiences, they're not wealth.
Oh, yeah.
The wealth are the assets that you accumulate over time. Your furniture, your car, your house, your things that you have that you continue to be able to use.
Yeah. And that you can liquidate if needed.
Yes. Although I don't know that a lot of people would buy my books, but I consider them wealth.
I mean, it's the internet age. You could sell your books, and I mean, yeah. I mean, that's
so they can go in a museum.
Probably, maybe, maybe not. A lot of people, you're not alone in liking the physical book. Like, I mean, I hear that from people all the time.
Yeah.
That's,
don't see them very much anymore, though. And in fact, people comment to me when I have appointments and so forth, and I'm sitting in the waiting room with a book. Yeah. Like, wow, I don't see a physical book very often anymore. I don't know how people can like stare at screens all day at work and then come home and stare at a screen some more.
I don't have to stare at one all day at work, so I'm fortunate in that respect.
Okay.
So, but I see physical books periodically, not all the time, but like I say, I mean, there's multiple people I work with that bring a book to work every day.
Yeah. And
like sit on their break time and read. Like that's not that uncommon, at least for me.
Yeah. Well, and the government is doing this to us right now in terms of bleeding away the value. And as if we're not, well, that wasn't helpful. I don't know why he's not. Like he's usually real good about not getting up on things that he's not supposed to get up on. I don't know what he's so interested in over there.
Keys.
Something new on the coffee table. Like, anyway, sorry about that, everyone. I had a cat that was misbehaving.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was saying either. Anyway, yeah, bleeding away value of the currency, and creating high time preference societies, and therefore not accumulating capital to invest in future production. That's roughly where we're. That's a summary, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you don't have capital to invest in future production, you don't increase production over time. If you don't increase production over time, then you don't increase wealth over time.
Yeah. So we're all going to be substantially poor.
We're substantially poor year after year. I read, I can't remember what the exact number was, but it was over 90% of the wealth, the value of currency, of incomes and so forth that you acquire in your lifetime is bled away through inflation.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean,
just a couple % a year adds up.
Well, I mean, we just, as a nation, we just experienced a nice little bump in that through Biden. But yeah, I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying, but through his 4 years, we experienced some
during that time. It started with the Trump administration's money printing during COVID.
Like I say, I'm not blaming him specifically, although he didn't do anything to help it.
No, he made it worse. But
like I say, but my point is that time period. But the thing is, so we just experienced that. But like the inflation is always happening. Like it's only going one way.
Yeah.
Like we've never experienced a deflationary economy. Like we've never been in an economy where like over the past 2 years the prices of goods went down. I mean, maybe in certain segments, TVs is always the example. But certain things, but overall prices go up.
Yeah, I think games is a good example because they just got a big bump in prices.
Yeah.
And prices have gone up little by little over the years.
Yeah.
But prices of computer games, PC and console games, have remained pretty stable for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
And the reason is that even though the value of the currency is going down, it's also the efficiency of the production has gone up.
Yeah.
So
it's
the prices have remained stable because even though it takes more dollars to buy the same amount of things, the production efficiency has made it less costly to produce the games.
Yeah. So they were able to balance it.
Yes. Now everybody's screaming about game prices bumping up for the first time in 20 years or something like that, in a significant way.
Yeah.
There's been a small creep, but not.
Yeah.
And part of that actually is that the gaming industry itself has become a bigger industry, and so like it's like the movie blockbuster kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So they're investing more resources in big titles, which means like a lot more programmers, a lot more resources applied, which also raises the costs.
Yeah.
But you can still buy, just like you can go find good indie movies that were made for tens of thousands of dollars instead of the hundreds of millions that like a Marvel movie costs. You can still find games out there that are like $10 instead of 60.
Yeah.
That are great.
Yeah.
But small studios, you may not get the same kind of attention in terms of when things need fixed and so forth. On the other hand, I've heard complaints about the big studios being really bad about fixing buggy games. Putting out really buggy games and then being very slow fixing them because it's a big corporate thing and they have a deadline. And so it was like you put it out whether it's ready or not.
It was coming out on this date whether it met the criteria or not. Yeah.
But the point here is that like now there's suddenly been a big bump in or like a significant bump in game prices. And it's because the inflation over the last several years, the last 5 years, has been enormous.
Yeah.
And they couldn't balance it out with production efficiency.
Yeah. I mean, but it's something we don't think about a lot because everybody in their mind just kind of bakes it in that the prices are always going to go up because they always have. But that's not an absolute. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
It just is because of the way our economy is structured, or the Fed is structured. The way the Fed manipulates the economy. I guess that's really what I'm looking for.
Yeah. The way it manipulates money supply and credit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And one of the things that we forget also is that it's not just the Fed that creates money; it's also the banks.
Yeah.
Because of fractional reserve banking, every time you put, if the fraction that has to be maintained is 10%, when you put $100 into the bank, and they lend out 90 of it, and they only keep 10 in the bank for you to cover your 100, they just created $90 out of nothing.
It just,
And when whoever takes that $90 and they go put it in a bank, there's another $81 that got created out of nothing.
Exactly. And it's even more wild when you think of everybody uses I mean, you have to use the bank. You really can't do transactions very much anymore without involving a bank.
Yeah, or some kind of exchange, your credit card, whatever. It all works.
Well,
kind
yeah,
of the
that's
same.
but the credit that's credit exactly. All of that is still money that's in a bank. I mean, unless you're spending cash,
Yeah.
that money is in that bank being like reproduced.
Yeah, ad infinitum till there's no more to create.
Yeah,
And so yeah, this is a bunch of money that's in the economy that doesn't even really exist.
yeah, yeah. That's just wild to think about.
And then it just reduces the value of the individual dollars, which is on the whole, it's not good for business because businesses have inputs that they have to purchase too, and their dollars are worth less also.
Yeah,
But banks, businesses, and so forth, they get the dollars first usually.
yeah,
The big, not creditees, the big creditees
yeah,
are they get the money before the inflation has trickled down and actually changed the value.
Yeah.
So they get $1 when it's still worth $1. Where by the time it gets down to your average person buying groceries or whatever, now it's only worth 70 cents or something.
yeah, yeah.
So inflation is better for businesses than it is for consumers. Deflation is better for consumers because then the purchasing power of each of the dollars is increased.
Yeah. I tell you, man, like that would be a campaign to run. Like if you wanted like run for president, like run on a deflationary campaign. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to and just say it just like that. Like we're going to create a deflationary economy,
Yeah. We're going to shrink the money supply, shrink credit. The problem is that like the first thing that's going to happen is a crash.
Yeah. Well,
That's the problem is that
the
there's
crash is coming one way or the other though.
well, true, but it doesn't actually benefit anybody at the beginning.
Well, no.
When you're trying to correct the problem.
Yeah.
The problem first becomes worse.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the common wisdom, the Keynesian wisdom.
Yeah.
I learned recently, by the way, that John Maynard Keynes, who is his economics is the base of all government economics because they love it.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
it's create money, spend money,
Yeah.
etc. When he started writing on economics, and I guess throughout, really, he'd never studied economics.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean,
he's
that doesn't surprise me.
he's essentially a trust fund kid
Yeah.
that started writing about money,
Yeah.
but he didn't have
Interesting.
any background in it.
Yeah.
He just had a hedonistic lifestyle because he never really had to work
Yeah.
and had a bunch of family money.
Interesting.
Anyway, his system doesn't work. Like all the predictions that have been made through Keynesian economics have failed. Like one of the big ones was that the end of World War II was going to cause the biggest crash in history.
Yeah.
But it actually caused the biggest boom in history when everybody came back and started producing again.
Right. Exactly.
And there's been a few others, but that's probably the most important one. And in a world that functioned properly, in a world of skeptics, I guess, or people that actually paid attention to data, that would have been the end of Keynesian economics. But
Right.
here we are still.
Yeah.
The real campaign would be return to hard money.
Yeah.
Like that would be the way to go. But it will still cause a crash. Like
I don't know. Here's one. In the Fed. Feel like we've ran that campaign.
yeah, it got a little traction.
It got some traction.
That was definitely grassroots. That was not supported anywhere else. But at any rate, yeah, the first thing that would happen is because of all this credit that shouldn't be there. So, and maybe this is how we sum up at the end. Like one of the problems with this system is that if the money is always losing value, it incentivizes investments that aren't actually profitable but stay ahead of inflation,
Yeah.
right? Which is a poor use of resources. Like essentially, you're taking resources, and all resources are scarce. All right, the scarcity is the absolute number one rule of economics.
Yeah.
So all resources are scarce. You can't use. There's never enough resources to complete every project that wants to use them.
Yeah.
And so you have to prioritize projects in some way. And the profit and loss system is how you prioritize projects.
Yeah.
But if you are creating a monetary system where the money is devalued over time, then you're incentivized actually to engage resources in projects that aren't profitable, but don't lose as much as the value of the money over time.
Yeah. It's such a messed up system.
Right. And so then that's also taking resources away from projects that are more profitable. Because there's not enough for both of them. And the reason that the crashes happen in the end is because at some point when the money supply starts to retract or credit starts to retract, when people see that there's a problem and then there's not enough resources to complete all the projects. And so things get left undone.
Yeah.
And it's just been a waste of resources, and we all become poorer.
Yeah. I mean, I remember after the crash of '08, there was half-built subdivisions everywhere.
Yeah, we're going to see that again.
Literally, I mean, I almost bought a house that was half finished just because it was so cheap.
Yeah.
You know? I could pay to finish it, you know?
This house was a foreclosure.
Yeah.
I bought this house as a foreclosure.
But
we're going to see that again. Like I've been thinking about that for a couple of years now when I've been driving around and I see all these big subdivisions that they're getting started working on.
Yeah. Because it's just one of those, like when the music stops, you know, I mean, everything kind of freezes in place.
Yep.
And then, like I say, all of that stuff, and I remember, because I was mentioning it to my wife the other day, remember when that subdivision sat there for 2 years, unfinished? And it's we remember, which ones it was, locally, that you used to just drive by and was just kind of abandoned. And then eventually somebody scooped it up for pennies on the dollar and finished it, you know?
Yeah.
But it took years.
Well, and the other part of that is that it sends bad signals to the economy when you increase the money supply, increase the credit, encourage people to consume, rather than save. Because while people are consuming, then your businesses are prioritizing creating goods to be like consumer goods instead of saving to increase production in the future.
Yeah.
Right. But it's important that they saved. Essentially, they're investing more in consumer goods than capital goods.
Yeah.
Right. Because the signal is that the economy, wants to consume these goods.
Yeah.
But it's because it's easy money. It's sending bad signals, and so they're never really developing for the savings period because people aren't saving.
Yeah.
And then people have nothing.
Yeah.
And so they're not consuming anymore, but you've already spent a bunch of resources on consumer goods instead of capital goods.
Yeah.
And there's not enough capital goods to go around either. So that's why these subdivisions end up being
just abandoned.
Unfinished, because the signal in the economy is that people want houses.
Yeah.
But there's not actually enough resources to complete all the houses.
Yeah. Right.
And it would be a whole lot better. You'd be a whole lot better off if you knew the resources that were available to you, instead of thinking that you had more resources available to you than actually were.
Yeah.
And then that's all malinvestment according to Rothbard.
Yeah.
And then it gets unfinished, and it's a waste of scarce resources, and nothing gets completed instead of at least a few things getting completed.
Yeah.
I guess that's all I've got.
Yeah.
I've kind of rambled on about money long enough.
Yeah.
I hope that was helpful. I didn't have any kind of structure in mind for that. I probably
Yeah.
I didn't want to set it up like a lecture, but it might have been more effective.
Could have set it up as a lecture and just had me interrupting you the whole time.
Yeah.
Or some of the time.
You didn't ask enough questions.
Yeah. I mean, I tried.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Anyway, happy 4th of July, everybody. That's tomorrow for us. So happy Independence Day.
Don't blow any of your fingers off.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Try and keep all your fingers.
Yeah, shoot fireworks, but be careful.
Don't drive drunk.
Yeah, definitely don't do that.
Uber's there for a reason.
It is so great to live in a time where you can just have somebody pick you up if you've had too much to drink. Like you just like get on your phone and just have some random guy in the car you've never met come take you home.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Think
about that a lot.
The world we live in.
It is pretty amazing, man.
It is.
Future is now.
This is a book I read not that long ago. Okay. Well, we'll wrap up here then, and expect to be back here next week. Let's see. In the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook. You can subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean. Like and share, comment, tell your friends. You can always email me, michael@thelibertymike.com. Is that all the things? I think that's all the things.
Yeah, you can set Mike straight on Bitcoin
Yeah.
if he's got it wrong.
I still have some skepticism.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, the other thing, okay, so just like one more comment on that before I close.
just reeled you right back in.
Like the other concern is that like there hasn't been any real breach, any fraud as far as I know on the Bitcoin network so far. That's a pretty good track record. It's been 15 years, something like that.
Been a while, yeah.
12 years, I don't know, something
like that. I don't actually know.
And so that's a pretty good track record. But like if something were to happen, if there was fraud perpetrated on the system, the whole thing would just kind of collapse.
Yeah. It only really take one time.
Yeah.
That's true.
But considering the amount of time that's gone by and that it gets harder and harder to defraud the system as time passes, I think.
You feel like it's pretty solid.
Yeah. The only problem I think this may be me misunderstanding again, like how this works. Because it's distributed nodes, right? Like across the world. Yeah. But as the cost of operating a node goes up, then it seems like if you lose a bunch of nodes, if it becomes really expensive, like mining has become really expensive.
Yeah.
So there's a lot fewer miners now than there used to be.
Yeah.
The incentive to mine is lower and the cost to mine is higher. Yeah. So there's just a lot fewer miners.
Yeah.
If that same kind of thing happens with the network nodes, then you start running into a more of a potential for somebody to
try to game the system.
Yeah, to take over, to coordinate.
Yeah.
And defraud the system.
Yeah.
So, anyway, and again, I may be completely wrong about that. And if I am and some of you know better, then send me an email.
Set him straight.
Yeah, if you want me to buy Bitcoin, you're going to have to you're going to have to convince me. Yeah. Anyway, we'll be back next week when we finally get this right. And in the meantime, try to stay free.
Life short, live free.
Ciao.
Later.